Hello everyone, Shannon Guss here, getting you ready for our finale week exit interviews for Australian Survivor, Brains V Brawn II. We have all of the final four coming at you in exit interviews that I really enjoyed doing. So hope you enjoy all of these. If you haven't watched finale week, week 9, please click away. Episodes 23 and 24, we will be talking to all of the final four contestants. Drum roll, please. We'll put them in order. We will go Miles, Kailin, AJ, and then Zara. So I really enjoyed all of these chats. Hope that you do too. As well as that, we have so much coverage. It is crazy on WeKnowGlobalSurvivor.com and all of your feeds. All of this is on YouTube as well. We had a recap of episode 23 with Puya and then an episode 24 recap with Mike, Puya, and Chappelle, which was such a fun time. We did that live. And if you missed that, please catch it now because it was such a good time. We will also have a feedback show with Mark and Eden, the two titans of Australian Survivor from last year. So really, really excited about that as well. And that's coming out soon. And then we have deep dives coming as well as that. And then these X interviews. I'm also covering Survivor 48. I had Taryn last week talking about the episode 7 episode. And then we have Teresa next week for episode 8. This is all we know globalsurvivor.com. Also, they announced AUV the World. So Mike and I got together to do a bit of a cast reveal on that and basically just freak out at the fact that that is happening. So again, it's an exciting time to be a fan of Global Survivor, of Australian Survivor. Hope you enjoy all of this coverage. Follow me at Shannon Gates so you don't miss any of this. And I will see you next time. Bye. Miles, welcome to Rob Has a Podcast. Congratulations. You are not just the Rat King, not just the Jungle Rat, but the Jungle Rat King of Survivor. That is incredible. I'm so happy for you.
I know. I'm so excited. I'm not sure that quite rolls off the tongue too well, so I'm not sure we're gonna roll with that. But yeah, it's crazy. It's wild. I'm so happy to be here. It's so unbelievable. It's still like I'm pinching myself. It still doesn't feel real. But yeah, it's crazy. I'm like the winner somehow.
I know. I love this winner story so much, and I'm thrilled for you. I'd love to take it back to last night. Really emotionally fraught finale. Like when you get to that final three and you lose the challenge, what are you thinking your odds are at that point of bringing Kaylin over? Because we know you were backing yourself to kind of win the challenge as your pathway.
Yeah, I was hopeful but nervous. So I knew coming into that final challenge, I knew Kalen thought he could beat me at Final Tribal. But I also knew Kalen thought he could beat AJ at Final Tribal. And I knew that Kalen thought he had a better chance against me, but I was worried. And AJ did phenomenally here with the go with your heart thing because Kalen's heart was telling him, take AJ because you can probably beat him anyway versus the easy
Right.
beat in Miles. And so I was hoping that he would take what was the person who he had a higher chance of beating, which was me. But I was nervous that he was going to take AJ, who he pretty much had no chance of beating at that final tribal.
What did you think about the final tribal council? Like, what votes did you go in hoping to get? Did you go in confident against Kaylin? What was your approach to that final tribal council?
Yeah. So, firstly, one of the things that I'm actually proudest of the game is that I, having confirmed afterwards, had a really, really good read of the jury. And I watched, and you can actually even see it in the show a lot. I watched the jury a lot during tribal councils. Um, and so I looked at the reactions as other people were speaking. And so I had a pretty good idea of who was voting where. Against Kalen, I was cautiously optimistic. Obviously, you never know with anything. You can't take anything for granted. But I felt like the two I was very confident with, I knew I had Zara and I knew I had Logan because Logan made scrunched up faces when Kaylin talked in Final Tribal Council sometimes. Sorry, in normal Tribal Council sometimes. And Zara, when she got voted out, was very grumpy at Kaylin and AJ and told me that she would put in a good word for me with the jury. I was also very optimistic about Laura, Karen, and AJ's votes. I was really always not thinking I was getting Kristen's, particularly against Caleb's because they were so close out there. And I was not really sure where Paulie and Kate were lying. I always thought Paulie and Kate would be like kind of wild card votes, and they would definitely be ones that were up in the air.
I'd have a chip on my shoulder if Paulie didn't vote for me and I had taken him to the jury and he wasn't even meant to be a juror without me. So I feel like you probably earned Paulie's vote there. But you talked about Zara. I'd love to talk about this plan at 5 that AJ brings up to your detriment at the final tribal council where
Yes.
you bet the house on Zara and Zara immediately denied you. So how do you kind of look back at that decision? Because I know that it was a lot of it was we have to take AJ, to be that threat kind of at the end
Yeah.
and you've diverged from that to cut him at 5. So what was your kind of your thinking through Final Five and how that all went down?
Yeah. So firstly, my thinking behind that was I realized that my for a long time I wanted to take AJ to 3 because I thought him and I as the two big threats, having him around as a shield and then
Yeah.
cut him at 3, which is ironically what actually happened. But what I realized is that people didn't see me as that big of a threat coming into the end game. Like Zara didn't see me as a huge threat at the end. Kailin didn't see me as a huge threat at the end. And so I realized if they're not seeing me as a massive threat, I can actually cut AJ and plan out a particular path. I was always really worried about Kaylin and AJ's relationship because I knew that they were really close, and I was not comfortable with going to Final Three with Kaylin and AJ because I was, as I said, worried that Kaylin would potentially take AJ, and I thought that Zara would be like more rational and take me over AJ, and against Kaylin as well, who AJ and I had both separately been getting in her ear about the fact that Kaylin's the golden boy, he's winning all the challenges, he's playing this incredible social game. And so Zara was actually quite worried about Kaylin's game. Now, the problem is that if we take out AJ there, it kind of goes onto the books as my move, right? And instead, I gave Zara all of the agency there, and Zara made a pretty bloody killer move there, in my opinion at least, where if as long as I don't beat the statistically best challenge competitor in the history of International Survivor, I go home at 4 and she's safe at 4, and then she has a fantastic chance of winning the final tribal council. Now, obviously, the results are the only thing that matter in Survivor, and the logic doesn't matter at all. Mean that it was clearly a bad move, but no, it was a fantastic move. And she really just shoved me under the bus, put me in an awful position at 4. Yeah, I put all my eggs in the Zara basket, and she pulled them all out.
Yes, but well, do you think Kaylin gets rid of you there if Kaylin wins the challenge and you and Zara are both up? Do you think he doesn't give you fire considering how much he was like weeping the next day about taking one of you and AJ out? Do you think he's more okay with breaking that loyalty at 4 if you're vulnerable?
Oh, Kaylin was never putting me in fire. I was dead at 4 if I
Right.
don't win that challenge. Yeah, yeah. Like
Yeah.
the Kaylin weeping at 3 was, I think, a lot like Kaylin and I were very close out there. Don't get me wrong, but Kaylin weeping at 3 was about him cutting his ride or die AJ and going with the logical thing of taking me to the end, who was someone who was an easier beat.
So I want to talk about Baron because I've asked a lot of the people who targeted you at that vote, like Miles randomly targeted, and then like that plan was discarded. How did you kind of see that? You were on the top, and then it was like you took it so well, obviously as someone who was like used to being on the bottom. But what happened there? Like, do you have any
Yeah.
sense of how that happened? Why? What happened?
No, I can tell you exactly what happened there. What happened there is every juicy target on the board was safe that night, and the only person who was worth taking a swing at was me. So, first of all, the vote before, especially, I had played particularly poorly, where AJ and I had done a fantastic job at kind of separating the Kate and Morgan group from the Zara Karen group and playing them against each other and whatnot. But the vote before had become a big entangled mess, and I'm sure we'll go into more detail about this, but I wigged out kind of both parties, and both parties were getting annoyed at me and AJ for kind of playing both sides. And then at a time when I needed to kind of put in a lot of work with Kate, Morgan, Zara, Karen, more than any time to kind of get things working again, I get swapped to the other side. I don't get to talk to them for 2 days. I'm on a tribe with 3 people that don't really like that are really grumpy at me, and Kaylin, who's just kind of chilling, cracking coconuts with me. Meanwhile, Zara, Karen, Kate, and Morgan, who we've done a fantastic job at not letting talk to each other ever up until here, on a beach for 2 days together. And then the people who are going to be gunning at each other at the next vote were Karen, AJ, and Kate, were the 3 targets at the next vote, for each side kind of having a go at each other. But they're
They're
on
all
the
immune.
bounty tribe together. The bounty tribe won, and they're all immune. And so, if you're wanting to take a shot and destabilize the kind of power structure, you don't take a shot at Paulie, who's on the bottom. You don't take a shot at Logan, who's on the bottom. Kristen and Kailin, just nobody was even looking at as a potential target. And so, I knew as soon as those rocks were drawn, I looked at who was on the tribe. I was like, oh, I'm in trouble. However, what happened then is everyone sees, okay, we've taken our shot at Miles. He's got no allies, especially because AJ was actually a big driver of this shot of the destabilization. And so people think AJ's decoupled from me. People think Kaylin's decoupled from me. I'm on the bottom. All of these big juicy targets in Kate, Karen, and AJ are now back on the board. And so nobody's even looking at me.
Yeah, well, I mean, you mentioned AJ and Kaylin. I'd love to talk about this alliance. Firstly, did the three of
Yeah.
you ever have an alliance name? Because I feel like that's what we were missing the whole time. This is like the most important alliance of the whole season, and we never got a name for it. And I feel like that was a huge loss. So I want to hear about that. But also, yeah, I mean, talk about this alliance, which we see form early on when you are at the bottom of the original Brains camp, and you talked about kind of how difficult it was to be on the bottom. Definitely, you seem to thrive there eventually, and you did it with a smile. But I'm sure that was really hard. Like, you're getting your survivor dream, and you come in, and Kent is pointing the finger at you about hat burning and all of these things. And I'm sure that was tough. And I feel like AJ and Kaylin were kind of the bright lights to emerge from that in a way that is going to last 46 to 47 days. So yeah, was there an alliance name, and it kind of, how did this form and kind of run through the game with these two guys?
So firstly, as a trio, we did not have alliance names,
That's
but I
such
did
a
have
miss.
I
Such a
know, I
miss.
know.
Oh my
I had
God.
duo alliance names with both of them. Kaylin and I were the Neutrino Bros, and AJ and I were the Nerdy Boys. But we never had like a trio.
Oh my God, you
Because
needed one.
interestingly, we never really like thought, as much as we kind of acted as a trio, and we never really thought of ourselves as a trio. It was more just like a triangle of duos. There was just one,
Which
like
some might think is a
AJ.
trio, a triangle
Some
duo.
might think is a trio, but yeah, that's never
Yeah.
really how we thought of it. Especially because Kaylin and I weren't as close as the like as I was very close with Kaylin, but it was never as tight as the AJ Kaylin relationship and the AJ me relationship. But yeah, on day three, Kaylin comes to me and we got along really well out there. And he goes, Miles, at this point, all the votes are coming your way. And I go, oh my God, I'm going to be second boot of Australian Survivor. This is awful. And I do everything in my power to try and make it not be. I get extraordinarily lucky that Indy blows up her game essentially. But Kaylin was the first one who kind of showed me a bit of love on that brain stripe. It was always so lovely to me and so nice to me. When he didn't have to be, he was the belle of the ball. Everyone wanted to work with him, and for some reason, he kept on coming back and being willing to work with me at various times throughout the game. And then AJ and I just clicked like that, where both of us, like our he was the only one that I could talk like intense strategy with. Like we could just go through numbers. We'd be up at night and we'd be going boom, 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 calculating like this, here's this option, here's that option, here's that option. And we just got along fantastically. Like our brains just work exactly the same. And so from very early on, I knew that I wanted to work with AJ. And yeah, obviously that was a thing that kind of just happened where the three of us complemented each other's games fantastically, the three of us.
Yes, I would outplay Outlast for sure. And you definitely outlasted
Yeah.
to the win. But I wanted to ask as well, like, you talked about being on the bottom and like the resilience that you had to have out there. I know that, it's probably difficult to make good decisions when dealing with that. And you said you did it with a smile, and I love the way that at the point you were like, "Then we'll be on the bottom." AJ was like, "I don't want to be on the bottom." You're like, "No, this is good." Like you were happy to go back to the bottom. You're like, "This is where I thrive." Was any of it like what breaking at any point? Like we see at a point that literally openly throwing a challenge to get rid of you. Incredible moment. I still think the defining moment of the season where you find that idol like a magnet
Yeah.
to you, and they're like, "Oh boy," and they start trying actually in the challenge through the swap. Like at any point was there a time where it was yeah, just like too much for you, or it felt like it was kind of breaking you at a point?
There were probably 2 points at which it got a little bit intense. So after that max tribal, I remember coming back after that and feeling pretty demoralized. But I still kept my head up high, and then 2 days later, I found another idol, and so I was feeling pretty good again. The big one, the only time I really had a proper breakdown all season was after the stupid lamb reward that we lost, they didn't show it. I was completely on tilt of that reward, and then we lost it. And I knew that if the thing was, I knew that if I didn't win it, then nobody was taking me because even the people I was still kind of working with, AJ and Kailin, couldn't take me because we're working on the down low. And so we came back to camp, and I had a bit of a breakdown, if I'm totally honest, like crying. But that was mostly because the only food I'd had in the previous 60 hours had been a single bowl of rice because we had Bounty Baron and then a like a crazy scramble for tribal. Yeah, so I was that was I think more out of genuine exhaustion, and then the genuine exhaustion with the emotion coming in over the top was pretty heavy. But yeah, for the most part, I stay pretty optimistic. I think almost getting voted out second like I did, it put me in a pretty good mindset throughout the game. And it's something that I think really helped my game long term is the fact that I really wasn't afraid to get voted out. I really wasn't afraid to cop votes. And I was just genuinely, I was just happy to be there just at all times. And every stage I'm progressing, I'm like, and every stage I end up on the bottom, I'm like, I'm on the bottom, but I'm still here. It's crazy. And then I just kept on playing from the bottom and it kept on working. And it's like, oh my God, I'm kind of good at this. Okay, back on the bottom. I go home, I go home. I shouldn't even be here now. I've found this, I've been on this ridiculous luck streak. Let's just keep riding it out.
You had a lot of bad luck as well. Like the way you talked about luck in the final tribal council. It's like to be fair, like then you got like swapped to the bottom. Like you had bad
Yes,
luck as
yes.
well. So I don't think I
Yeah,
would classify you as a lucky winner at all. You found idols because you worked for them. And to be fair, one of them did float towards you because you had freaking earned it, okay? Through weeks of the way people were treating you and being swapped to the
yeah,
bottom, that idol found you and it was meant to. That was God's will, okay? That's not luck.
yeah.
Yeah, that was divine intervention. But you had so many complex relationships out there. We talked about AJ and Kaylin, obviously the other graduates in Zara and Karen. You talked about Kate and Morgan, who we saw more on the AJ side. Like, who did you see as these really key allies to you through the game? Who was like most important
Yeah.
otherwise to your game?
So Zara and Karen were a big one. Zara, especially just because I worked with her a bit more. It was a real shame that Karen got swapped over to the other side because we kind of floated apart a bit, and because she was like feuding with AJ, a bit coming into merge. She never saw me really as decoupling with AJ, even though I was actually really willing to. I wasn't wanting to vote out AJ, but I did want to depower AJ, and Karen didn't really realize that, so I was ready to kind of take some pot shots at him. But Zara was a really big one. I love Zara. I loved her gameplay style. I loved her communication style. I'm not the greatest at picking up on social cues, and to have someone like Zara out there who will just go up to your face and be like, Miles, you're pissing me off doing this thing, is so fantastic when compared to most people who will just talk about it behind your back and then vote you out. And so I actually really appreciated how direct Zara was in a way that a lot of people didn't appreciate very much throughout the season. And it's something that I think is what was so good about the Postgraduates Alliance is that everyone there is pretty logical, and so everyone could kind of get together for the votes we need to get together for. And you can see that at Final Eight, where everyone realizes it's in all of our best interest to kind of reform and lock in as a four. And we did that. And yeah, Zara was a really key relationship all game. The other big one, and this never really made the air, Laura and I were extraordinarily close all season. Laura and I got along really well initially. The problem was Laura's entire alliance, I didn't really get along that well with initially because Laura was really closely aligned initially with Logan, Max, and Rich, and those were kind of the guys that were gunning for me at the start. But on the indie vote, it was actually Laura that went around from person to person, switching the votes from me over to indie. And I knew that it was her because she had gone one by one and switched those votes over. And yeah, so I was extraordinarily close with Laura. And it was a big emotional vote out to take her out eventually when we did in the dramatic tribal where Logan plays her idol. But yeah, Laura and I was a really key relationship that never really like blossomed into any fruition as far as making any moves, if that makes sense. But we were very, very tight out there.
Yeah, I mean, look how you said before you were lucky that Indy went. No, you had an ally who was helping you. See, not a lucky winner,
Yes.
Miles. Not lucky. Very good. I wanted to ask about the PD move. Obviously, these are things we'll talk about in the deep dive
Yes.
at length. And I think we got there over weeks at a time. The edit
Yeah.
was hiding a lot of the things, like PD's relationship
Yeah.
with Zara, and the fact
Yeah.
that apparently other people knew about the move, and you kind of were using it to gain
Yeah.
these numbers. So what didn't we see? What did we miss from your point of view
Yeah.
about the intention behind this move?
Okay, so there was a lot of stuff going on behind it. The first was, what a sick move. I just stole an idol and negated 9 votes. There was a
Yeah.
bit of that in there.
Yeah.
The important thing was first everyone was playing very structured and very conservatively in a way that I was finding very frustrating, and especially as someone who I knew was a bit polarizing, didn't have some of the same strong connections a lot of people did. If we kept on going with these kind of simple votes, I didn't feel comfortable with my spot on the tribe. Like I really wanted to kind of force people's hands to make some strong decisions. PD and Kristen always really scared me, the two of them, because the two of them, everyone loved PD and Kristen so much because they're lovely human beings. When we came into merge, no one was really even talking about them, and the coven wasn't really a big thing post swap and something that we were worried about. Like coming into merge, it was the graduates who had control, and the idea was for the graduates to have control with like extra numbers being PD and Kristen. Now that wasn't great for me because Zara was really close with PD, Kristen was really close with Karen, AJ, and Kailin, and so when things did eventually implode, I knew that I was a person who was in a bit of trouble if things did implode there because I was the easy vote kind of for everyone. Now, I was especially coming into merge, I was very close with Kate and Morgan. We had a little secret alliance going on. And this is my favorite alliance name of the whole season. When Zara got swapped across and the girls were a bit grumpy at her, and they bring me in and they go, Miles, you could join our Girls Gone Wild alliance, but we'll call it the Girls Gone Miles alliance because you're in here now.
Yeah.
But so I was close with Kate and Morgan, and I saw the opportunity. Laura wanted to take a swing at PD. I thought, fantastic. This is exceptional for my game. And then Laura chickens out, and I'm very frustrated with how that's all gone down. And I know Kate and Morgan are close with Paulie, and so we can get a bit of a voting block forming there. I know that Kate and Morgan were getting a bit bored with the game as well. I'm really excited to like make big moves. And I saw that with the Jesse move, them really pushing that hard, is that they really wanted to come in and see like kind of big fun moves. And so I saw it as an opportunity to just like take out someone that I think is a genuinely big threat in PD because PD, everyone loves PD, everyone's kind of trying to drag PD through, but he's also a big fan PD and he's quite switched on. And so I think he would have had that strategic nous to potentially just be able to slide through under the radar. So I take out someone who I think is a big threat and someone that's really under the radar. But it's Paulie, who everyone's just constantly targeting Paulie, which is great for me because everyone was constantly targeting me. And so take out PD, I get to save Paulie because everyone's telling me we can't work with Paulie, we can't work with Paulie, we can't let Paulie make it to the jury because he's not going to vote for any of us. I'm like, so if you can't work with Paulie and he's not going to vote for you at the jury, who's he going to work with and who's he going to vote for at the jury? Me. And so I get to save Paulie and have him as an extra number. I get to take out PD. I get to make a big flashy resume move. And I just get to make a bit of a statement on the game. Like everyone it did what I wanted it to at the core of it, which was everyone started playing more aggressively. Everyone started like being more willing to kind of make moves and make things happen in a way that they weren't in the couple of votes leading up to it. And that definitely gave me more room to maneuver, I think.
Yeah, but so had other people known about it? Did Kate and Morgan know beforehand,
Oh,
or?
yeah, so I think if I remember correctly, AJ and I gave them a tip off in tribal council that we were doing something. So now not we didn't tell them
Being
what was
crazy.
happening, but we're
Yeah.
we're just like a because we were sitting next to them and we're just like a I think AJ gave I don't know if Kate knew, I think AJ tipped off Morgan like, hey, just a heads up that we're doing something here, but don't worry about it. And I knew that we had them because when we got back to the camp, everyone started yelling at us, everyone was freaking out, and then we go lay down on the beach and chat, and Kate and Morgan came down and were cackling their heads off and having the most fun time laughing at how everything had just blown up. And that was when I was like, okay, AJ and I have locked in Kate and Morgan here as allies, which then eventually turned into AJ locking in Kate and Morgan as allies without me. But yeah, that was the idea behind it.
Yeah, well, look, I love how you're like, I'm exhausted. I'm like, it's fine. We're gonna keep it top level, and then I'm like, you defend the entire PD move, and you did it brilliantly. You were like defending a
Thank you.
thesis, even on Little Sleep. Easy question for the last one before
Yeah,
we get to a deep dive
yeah.
in some time, not a long time, but what will you play again? How are you feeling about that? Because you got so much out of the experience. I hope there's another one on the cards one day.
Yeah, it's weird because on one hand, I ticked off everything on the bucket list. So I obviously I've not got anything where I'm like I've got unfinished business or anything. But obviously, I love the game as well. So I think a lot of it is just dependent on situation. But I'm very much open to play again, depending on like life situation and everything. But yeah, who knows? We'll see. But yeah, it'd be fun.
AUV World 2 is
Yeah,
that's the
and
spot.
and I'll tell you what, if you thought that I was a bit chaotic and unhinged playing this time with a lot on the line, imagine me playing with nothing to lose.
Well, hopefully no future players you play with are listening to this interview. If
No,
so.
yeah, I mean, no, I'm going to be the most stable and dependable ally that we've ever seen.
What it is
Mm.
I've already been crazy for 47 days and now I want to try the other thing. And I'm going to be, and also
Exactly,
I've already
exactly,
won 500K. I want to give someone else 500K. That's what, Miles,
exactly.
come on. You got to keep playing the game. It never
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
stops. But
totally.
Miles,
Thank you.
congrats. Huge, huge congrats. So, so happy for you. We're going to do a deep dive, a very long deep
Yeah,
dive.
we
Now,
are.
remember, I want light blue. I want the
Mm.
graduate rat shirt with the
It's
graduate. Yeah,
coming.
that's the
It's
one that
coming.
yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Miles. A big congrats again and have a great day.
Cheers, you too. Have a great
Bye.
day.
See ya.
Bye.
Kailin, welcome to Rob Has a Podcast. So sorry that it is for the second place interview, but you got all the way to the end. You made all of Australia cry last night. Like you're not in Australia right now, so I can let you know there's like a flooding issue right now with the tears. Everyone was crying last night. It was so emotional, and I can't wait to talk to you about it. But thank you for coming onto the podcast.
No, thanks for having me. Sad to hear. Yeah, there's some tears, but it's nice to have that support.
Yeah, my mom specifically said any mother would be proud to have Kaylin as her son. So I
Okay.
think that you won the hearts of the mothers, definitely. And I think everyone else as
Okay.
well. I'd love to talk about this final three decision. Obviously, massive there. We saw the emotion to cut AJ. When did you
Yeah.
start thinking about that? Was it always the plan you were going to get to the end and cut AJ? Was it something that was kind of like a last minute thing for you? Like, what was your mentality through this decision?
Well, yeah, it's a very tough one as you saw last night, but because I've been working closer with AJ the whole game, and AJ was my best friend on the beach, so it was very tough. But I always knew that people respected his strategic game and social game a lot, probably more than Miles. So in my mind, I always had someone, yeah, someone I thought I could beat, Miles, and then I had AJ, and then yeah, that was the hard thing. You have the game player, Kailin, who's never going to take AJ, but then the lines kind of got blurred. When you're not sleeping, you're fighting together. AJ is always doing such a massive help on the beach. He's there cracking coconuts with me, and giving me advice, and so. I couldn't make a decision until the final tribal, yeah, the final tribal council. It was, yeah, it was tearing me apart that day too. So, yeah, it was strategically always I would take Miles, and then it was, is that going to be more powerful than my personal relationships with AJ? And I never thought it'd be so close, especially going into the game. I thought I'd do anything to win. So, well, I tried to in the end, but that battle was there.
Do you look back now and think about like turning on Mars and AJ any earlier, or did you really feel like you would have it a pretty good shot to beat Mars in the end? Because yeah, I mean, Mars is going to be immune at 4, and at 5, it looks like you might have to take a shot maybe at AJ at one of those points or Mars even earlier. Had you been considering that throughout, or you were kind of happy to go further with the guys and see how that would go?
Yeah, so so the reason I went with them is I thought, yeah, maybe ignorantly, but I thought there's the strategic, there's the social and the physical game. And as soon as I thought I had the social and the physical locked in, I thought, now it's time to settle. Just get to the end. It's people at this time will try to make big moves, try to do something flashy, impressive, and then they'll get voted out. So in my mind, it was always get to the end. So that's why I was pretty confident going with the two of them. But there was a point where I caught AJ, who he hadn't told me about Miles's idol.
Yeah.
Um, when I talked to him about voting him out. So then that's when I thought about flipping and going with Logan and Kristen. But then I had a good. This was just before that balance challenge for the beauty reward, and I had a good conversation with AJ there, which brought me back to the guys. Maybe that wasn't for the best. Maybe I should have split then. But yeah, you say shoulda, woulda. As soon as you do something, you can get voted out. So it's you never know
Yeah.
what could happen.
For sure. I mean, what about your relationship with Zara? Was there any thought about
Yeah,
kind of getting together with her at a 5, or maybe even a
yeah.
4 would have been tough, but was there any point where you were trying to keep maybe Zara in the game?
No, Zara, no. Sorry. if I say it so bluntly. The so I wanted to work with her and Kaz early on, but every time I'd learned that they made an alliance without me, and so there was no trust there towards Zara or Kaz. That's did not want to trust them or work with them. And especially Zara towards the final three challenge. Like, I think who's to know who could win out of me and Zara? She does weigh like 36 kilograms, and standing on those pegs, I think. Yeah, I would have had to faint or something to fall off because I wanted it so bad to win, and you can damage yourself. Like even though you can get through the pain, you're still doing physical damage to yourself when you're standing on those tiny little pegs. So I didn't want her at the end because she's probably the best person at that challenge.
Yeah, if Miles doesn't win immunity at the final four, say you win immunity and both Zara and Miles are vulnerable, you know, Miles came to you
Yeah,
and you told him we didn't get have a confessional about it, but you told him that you
yeah.
might vote with him and then that might, you know, send him to fire against Zara where it seems like he'd have a good chance of that. Is that something you were actually thinking about? Or if Miles is vulnerable at the final four, are you taking him out of the game over Zara?
Yeah, everything was still open. It was very much an option to get rid of Zara. I mean, get rid of Miles and keep Zara in, especially because between me and Miles, then it was questionable whether Zara would take me to the final two. But between me and AJ, maybe it's more likely that she'd take me over AJ. Probably very likely. So that was definitely an option, but yeah, we didn't have to make that decision.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
then again, if it wasn't me winning, then Miles is I'm very happy for him to win. He's just starting out in life. He can really use that money, to him, winning Survivor was the most important thing out of anyone in the game, I think. So it was very nice to see him win.
That's such an empathetic way to look at it, Kaylin. It's amazing. Like genuinely, like your heart shines through on the show and in the interview. Sitting next to him at the final tribal council, who were the votes you were hoping to get? Like who were you surprised you didn't get? Who were you relying
Yeah,
on to kind of see what you were talking about with the pillars? And it brings Kristen over for sure. And it's a great argument on like if what Kristen's saying and what you're saying is correct, and there are three pillars. I think two of three,
yeah.
like you do clear that. So who were you hoping would kind of see that and give you their vote on the jury?
Yeah, so first of all, Kristen's just amazing. She's probably one of the first role models I've had in life. All the amazing things she's done,
Oh.
and her personality is just amazing. So grateful for her to give me give me one vote. It's nice. But yeah. So in terms of the votes, I thought I had. So Logan tricked me a little bit after the Rocks vote, saying she'd never vote for AJ or Miles. So I went into final tribal council thinking that I had votes to lose as well, not just votes to gain. So I was a bit careful. There's a few more things I could have said. Um, then I thought we were going poorly potentially, just because Miles had burnt him, and then maybe I thought I'd probably get Kaz over, and then maybe Zara, seeing as Zara, yeah, I got so many coconuts, and even on our last day, Miles was drinking Zara's coconuts without asking, so I thought I had a little bit of sway there, but in the end of the day, I think I just misread what people were looking for, not for those pillars, but more. Yeah, more who has sway in what happens each day to day on the beach. And yeah, it's a different way of looking at it. My way was more, yeah, more what's reproducible, what gets you to the end every time. And yeah, that's probably a lack of preparation. I was just too busy coming into the game with I had to publish a paper and trying to get ready quickly. So I didn't get to watch too many final speeches. So I hope it wasn't too bad last night. Maybe it
No,
was too
not at
bad.
all. I mean, every jury is different as well. There are some juries that might care
Yeah.
more about the pillars, and this jury loved the big moves that AJ and Miles had. Did you think that you might get AJ's vote, obviously with the closeness that you had, or did you think that Miles had
Yeah.
that one?
Uh, yeah. So AJ, I wasn't sure because when Miles had tried to vote AJ out, AJ was quite, yeah, he didn't take it too well. He just couldn't get past why Miles would vote for him. So getting rid of AJ, I hoped that he would vote with me, especially because he saw I wasn't just sitting down doing nothing the whole time. But yeah, I think fair enough. It hurt him when I voted him out. And his question, yeah, he was quite worked up, but his game was similar to Miles, and he believed in the way Miles played. So yeah, it makes sense that he voted for Miles.
How do you look back at that final tribal council speech now where, was there anything that you think you could have done differently or that you needed to say differently? Like, do you look back at any part of that as that being maybe the reason things went wrong, or like it was just kind of
Yeah,
beyond the speech at that point?
yeah. I haven't watched it, so I can't remember exactly
It
what
looks
was said.
good. It looks
Uh,
good.
okay,
The
yeah,
opening
hey,
speech
that's
is
very nice of you.
great. You get the Kristen
Yeah.
question, great. You nigh
Yeah.
Marl at a couple of the points in poker. You mentioned that he put his feet through Kate's pasta, so that's all really good. Like that'll look good. Yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, I think maybe yeah, I thought so. Everybody thinks they've done everything on the show. Everyone thinks they got everyone else out. So I probably shouldn't have tried to claim things as solely my own, especially like getting Kaz out or something. But just to show the probably more rather than saying I did this, say I just try to create chaos, so to keep myself safe. And there's a few things earlier, like I convinced Rich that the girls were out to get him after AJ couldn't do that, and I was scared to bring that stuff up because I thought, oh, Logan will be so angry. I've got Logan's vote. I can't
Yeah.
I can't lose that. But but yeah, I think maybe it was too late anyway. Maybe yeah, I think it was maybe too late by the time we got to the final speech. But I was also yeah, had a bit of that coffee from breakfast just before the speech, so that was probably a bad idea. I think I got into a caffeine craze, which I couldn't really know what I was saying. So
Yeah.
yeah, just hope it didn't come off like that.
It didn't at all. And like I'm someone who comes off like that often. So that's not how it came off. One of the things that the edit seemed to kind of highlight a lot of was that you couldn't point to a mistake. Miles was like, I made all, I feel like there was like a
Yeah,
humility that people liked. Do you feel like was there anything now that you look back on that you might have said there, or was that like kind of a hard question when you had a pretty comprehensive approach to the game?
yeah. Well, and was this the question from? Was it from? Was who asked that question?
I
Do you remember?
don't I don't remember. You don't if I don't remember how are you gonna remember who about the mistakes. I think it was
Yeah.
Karen saying what you weren't proud
Okay.
of, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's very hard for me to answer that question because the I was very strict in how I approached the game. And of course, looking back, I can point out 10,000 mistakes, but at the time, I was very strict and I followed exactly what I wanted to do. And so, yeah, I know they want to hear about a mistake. And there's lots looking back. Like, of course, I should have done something differently. I should have switched, gone with Logan and Kristen, or I should have. Someone pointed out a cool move. If I would have gone against Miles with Morgan and Kate, then that would have caused a bit of trouble, and I probably still would have been safe. So, I think my biggest mistake was just playing it too safe. I'd suppose in the end, I always thought I was at more risk than I was, and I thought winning the challenges. Maybe if I do anything strategic, that's just a little bit too much. That might cause Miles and AJ to flip on me. But I think I was always safer than I thought I was. So
Yeah.
but that's probably is that okay? Do you think that
Like
answers
you've
it?
appeased me. I don't have a jury vote to give you, but I think that it
Damn
makes
it!
a lot of. But
What?
wait, but did you bring up to the jury how you told
Yeah.
JLP not to blow up your spot in the challenge? Because we love this. This was one of the most unique things I've ever seen, that you were in the position to tell JLP to stop blowing up your spot, which was incredible. I was wondering if you brought that up and maybe if JLP like supported you on that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. Sadly, I didn't bring that up. I thought that was just a little thing, but yeah, it was funny to watch. I can't believe I shushed him.
It was
That felt
amazing.
rude. I hope it didn't come across as rude putting the finger up. That was terrible. But
No.
um. Yeah, I was just trying to do little things like that every day. Just every conversation I had just yeah, just laughing to myself when somebody was trying to say something to me and maybe they'll try and explain the game to me, how I can possibly win. And so I had a really good time out there. So yeah, I didn't think to bring that up, but maybe it would have been a good one. And maybe they wouldn't have believed me. Who knows? I don't know.
JLP should have vouched for you, but he didn't find it rude. He was laughing. I was laughing. I thought that was absolutely incredible. Well, AJ and Miles, let's talk about it. You protected both of
Yeah,
them through a lot of, it seemed, the pre-merge. I mean, you get to the end with them, but they needed you, right? Like Miles early on, AJ seemingly through the swap. What kind of started those relationships with you, and what work were you doing, do you think, to kind of, help them through some of the trickier parts of especially the first half of the
yeah.
game?
Yeah, well, definitely you got to give them credit for getting themselves through.
True, as
But
well. Yeah.
my approach to it, I saw that AJ and Miles were two people that yeah, they got in a lot of the discussions, heated discussions with everyone. There was a lot of drama involved with them, and I saw them as people that people would like to vote out in the game. So I thought if I can keep them in, then there's an easy way to keep myself safe, yeah, as a shield. And the way I went about that was it was just so for instance, when we were in the tribe swap, then Logan was like, "Oh, we gotta get rid of AJ. AJ is just causing too much trouble." And I'm like, I explained that to her. Everybody knows AJ's trouble. Everyone knows AJ's crazy. We can keep him in, get him out later. And then when he became kind of my conduit to the strategic world, giving me information, yeah, sometimes he wouldn't tell me everything, but I wouldn't tell him everything, and he just became more and more important. And then with Miles, he just needed to survive that early stage. And I just tried to same argument with AJ. You just tell everyone, yep, he's easy to get out. Why would you get him out now? Just let him stay a little bit longer. And then what? No way he's going to survive merge or something like that. So just getting people to delay it a little bit. And even though I didn't partake in too many strategic conversations, I think yeah, when I told people that I don't want to do one thing, then it usually kind of worked.
I'd love to talk more about the relationship with Logan that you mentioned because I feel like Logan, she says game recognizes game for Miles and sure enough, but you, I think, outplayed her a lot of the time. It seems like she put a lot of trust in you. She found her
Yeah.
idol with you there. You knew about the idol and then blew up her spot by telling AJ about that. So how was that relationship with Logan through the game? And also, yeah, what was your intention kind of with telling the information about her idol and the fact that yeah,
Yeah.
she's gonna go home and she's gonna play the idol, but be targeted kind of with that threat level.
Yeah. Yeah, so Logan's a tough one because we were good friends, and that's why it's sad because we are never really strategically close. And she's told me she confused the two, so friendship and working in a strategic partnership. So that was quite painful for me because I was always working against her, but we were friends at the same time. And so a lot of times I'd vote for her, and you'd see maybe she gets angry at me, and then as a friend I could bring her back and calm her down and be friends again, knowing that I'm gonna have to vote for her again, and that was pretty painful for me. Um, but with the idol. Yeah, of course I can't have an idol in there, and I wanted to find the idol. So if we flushed that, it was going to be beautiful. And then I had a great time on the Baron tribe when I convinced Logan that it was actually Kaz who was leading this reveal of the idol, um, rather than me. So yeah, I kind of exploited a little bit the friendship Logan had for me, which is not so nice. Um, but I was able to use that strategically to keep getting her back on side.
Yeah, we saw at that Baron tribe where obviously Miles is targeted. I kind of never knew where you sat with that. We see you in the conversations,
Yeah,
but then later on you blame other people. But like it's also good to
yeah,
blame other people, and definitely if you don't want people to be
yeah,
mad at you, that makes sense. How did you feel about targeting Miles? And then obviously Miles
yeah,
escapes that target and moves on with that. But where did you sit with that really now that you don't have to,
yeah.
have a story about it for everyone else?
Yeah. Okay, that was actually a really fun one. I'm not sure if that came out in the show, but so I was happy for Miles to go at that point because him and AJ were just
Right.
getting too close and doing too much. So I had a conversation with AJ and I said, let's let Miles go on this one. And that's when AJ didn't tell me about the idol. Then Miles told me that AJ knew about the idol, so I knew AJ wasn't telling me everything. So then I could trust AJ less and stop telling him so much. But then I found out from Logan that Miles probably had an idol. And so at the tribal council, just in case Miles had the idol, I pinched him next to the seat, and he just looked at me, and it was just my little warning to tell him had to use an idol. So either he had the idol, he used it and saved himself, and then I showed him that he could trust me, or he didn't have one and he got out, and I was happy too. So yeah, he when I told him about that, he got grumpy at me because yeah, I think he saved me a bit in that vote too, telling people not to vote for me. So yeah, it's the hard thing having the trying to win the game strategically and then having your great mates that you might have to say goodbye to. So it's the craziest mental thing you can ever do going on this game. People don't see that. You're underfed, you're underslept, and then you're not just in a game. It's not some board game that takes up an hour, 2 hours. You're living with these people and you're cooking, you're crying, and it's I still get so confused and you just feel sick in the stomach. Like it's a it's a crazy, interesting, weird, terrible, awesome thing, the game.
Yes, I agree. But Kaylin, I mean, in that, the way that people have spoken about you in the X interviews, I have to say, everyone has come out and been like, they can't believe what they're seeing about the way that you played and that you really fooled them. Like, you and AJ are the two names I heard in almost every X interview about, like, why aren't you guys doing something? Like, you're all going home and not making the moves I want you to make. And they were like, AJ and Kaylin like really snowed us. So, what were the kind of other key relationships that you think you were maintaining through the game to have that power and control? I mean, you've talked about Logan, obviously. You mentioned your good relationship with Kristen. Like, what did you see as these like really
Yeah.
key relationships that you were maintaining through that?
Yeah, so the I was yeah, it's quite a strange thing because early on in the game, well, the reason I started doing all this fishing and everything is because, oh, I love it, first of all, but everyone told me in previous seasons they heard that, oh, that people got fishing gear and they wouldn't go fishing because they were paranoid that they would be talked about when they were out in the water. And I thought, man, that is the perfect cover. I need to go out fishing. People will never suspect me to be playing the game. And then I thought, oh, but then I might be missing out on these on forming relationships with these people and being able to discuss. But I quickly found out that somehow we're just close friends, like instantly with everyone. So I was never like, I think I was close with everyone, and they would ask my opinion, and I don't think there was any relationship like the two closest, of course, Miles and AJ. But other than that, people would just ask me who I wanted to vote for, or so I think I just had those relationships with everyone. And there was a stage when there was like eight of us left, and I had nine little alliances. So I was kind of just had this web of connections with everybody. And yeah, sorry I'm mumbling, but
No, not at all.
yeah, it was kind of had this relationship with everybody. If I would have seriously talked to anyone about changing the vote, I think there was a good chance that could have happened. Um,
Yeah.
so it's kind
Yeah.
of with everyone.
Yeah. Well, we saw that a lot with Karen, who you're going to play, until she goes home. Like you're with her on all of
Yeah,
the tribes. What
yeah,
was that relationship? Because she
yeah,
seemed to really assume she had you. And I feel like we had that a lot of the
yeah,
game. If people would assume they had you, we saw that even at the alley vote where like the graduates are really gonna form here. Like
yeah,
people just assumed you were kind of in their groups.
yeah.
And then we hear you be like, Karen needs to go. So like how did you kind of see that relationship with her?
Yeah, so Karen's a really fun one. The first conversation I had, I thought I need somebody. I need to trust somebody. I need a ride or die to get through this game, or I'll go crazy. And so I walked straight up to Karen. Karen. I'll call her Kaz. Then she won't kill me. Walked straight up to Kaz and asked her if let's get out of the way. Let's be a final two. And she said, "Oh, I have to think about it." And that was honest from her, but then I knew she wasn't going to work with me. But she was one of my best friends on the beach. Like I'm not. She told me you didn't really get to see it from the show so much, but we're always wrestling or having jokes, and we from again that's someone who mistook strategic and friendship because we were great friends, but she never involved me strategically. She never wanted to discuss things, and then when she was trying to when Logan played her idol. And Logan was very angry at me and Kaz. Kaz pulled Logan aside, and I knew instantly she's going to tell her I told her about the idol. And I tried to join the conversation, she wouldn't let me, and so she couldn't see that I could get around that and see that she underestimated me for sure, and she's told me that since the game. Um, so yeah, in summary, me and Kaz we were great friends, and because of the great friendship we had, Kaz thought that we were strategically working together. But she made lots of alliances without me, didn't involve me, so I always had in mind that she had to go. And she was one of the smartest people there. So if she wasn't with me, then of course we have to get rid of her. It was my thinking. But again, a very sad one again to have one of your great friends leave the beach, and I laughed with her more than anyone. We're always just doing some silly things on the beach. So yeah, that was really
Yeah.
heartbreaking.
It's a curse having to blindside all these players out of the game, Kailin, having that much power to take them out. I could ask a couple of questions because I know we're running short on time, but it's a
Yeah,
strange question to ask someone who won 7 immunity challenges, which is incredible. It's not just a global record. It's like, I don't see how anyone could ever surpass that record. I'm still going to ask the question though, were you ever
yeah,
throwing challenges? Because we noticed that at
yeah,
the challenge where Logan won, you were like, this would be a
yeah,
really bad one to show that you're good at endurance, and you went out really
yeah,
early. And I was like, So, and you said to AJ
yeah,
as well, like, can I win this? So, were you ever like
yeah.
sandbagging for someone who won 7 immunity challenges?
Yeah, well, like yes, yes. So the not just because I chose to not go hard at it doesn't mean I'd win. I probably could still lose easy. But there was the one that Logan won. That was pretty much exactly what stand-up paddleboarding is. So that one was quite easy to get rid of. I couldn't win any challenge. That when I thought I was working, I was considering working really closely with Logan to the end, and she needed to think that she was better than me at balance and endurance, standing on things. So that balance one, the one with the ball where you stand up, that Kate won, there was no chance I could win that. That was crazy. That looked like I threw it and just dropping out so early, but I just couldn't do it at all. But then there's always the flip side thing. Even though it looks so obvious that I threw it,
Oh, that was the
then
one I
that
meant.
kind of
Yeah,
gave
that
me
was the K. That's the one I meant that I thought you threw. The one that Kate
okay.
won.
No,
Yeah.
I I didn't I dropped out of the one with the balls where you balance it.
Yeah, yeah,
And then the one with the ball, no, that looked like I was obviously throwing.
yeah,
That was such a mistake. I just couldn't do it. It was so painful. And yeah, but then that added this innocence of if Kaylin's throwing a challenge, we know he's throwing a challenge. So
yeah,
it kind of everything that didn't work against me, kind of there was always these silver linings that kind of helped me. But other than that, I was trying I was trying hard to win.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe the surfing one. I still think Kristen would have beaten me, but I didn't so much need a beauty day at the beauty retreat, whatever they called it. Um,
Yeah.
but again, I think Kristen would have flogged me in that anyway. She's amazing. So yeah, just because I chose not to give my all in a challenge, I still think it's unlikely I could have won anyway. So
Well, you're going because you're very humble. It's funny that you lost so few challenges, and I'm still like I mixed up those ones. Yes, Kate won the one standing with the
yeah,
ball, and then look, but I should
yeah,
remember that because there was like, you could count on one hand how many challenges you lost. So I should have that better. But
it's
Kaylin,
nice.
yeah, I mean it's amazing. Last question. I know it's a crazy,
Yeah.
wonderful game, crazy, terrible, all of the things. Is it something you'd want to play again, or do you feel like you got your fill
Yeah.
from the 47 days you played out there?
Oh, I can't wait to get back on. I absolutely would love it. It was so much fun. And I've learned so much. So to go back into it and knowing what people want this time, that'll probably help. But going back in, yeah, I'll do some training. I don't think I'll be able to lose the challenge. I'll be sent home potentially.
Yeah.
So it'll be tough, but man, I love Samoa. Or it was just so amazing. Like what an amazing environment. Sleeping on the beach with your friends and camping, like that's a dream. And then you add on that, you get to go do these physical challenges, so much fun. And then just the strategy of it all is just I love board games, so it was a perfect experience, and I absolutely loved it, and can't wait to get back on if there's an opportunity.
Did you know much about the game before you went on? Like, what were you learning
Yeah.
about it at the time for this, or like had you known much about it before you were like asked to go on it?
Yeah, I'd never watched Survivor to be honest, before I went on, and I was just speed watching whatever I could find, and the yeah, I could never find the final speeches, so, so that was an issue. But I was more just watching the strategy, watching how people got voted out, and that kind of made me a little bit yeah, probably too nervous because I saw people who were playing a good game, and then they're like, now I gotta make a big
Yes.
move. They do a big move, and they get voted out. So I was like, I'm never gonna be that silly. I'm never gonna just yeah. So maybe I didn't learn the right lessons, but there was still a lot I was learning along the way. And that's when Miles was amazing to have such a close friend in Miles. I can ask Miles, what happens here? What's this about? What's that about? And he absolutely knew. So
Yeah.
I know a lot more now. I know more now.
Yeah, I'm sure AJ and Miles as your allies, you get quite a great education. They can explain to you what rocks are. That's like the perfect way to learn Survivor on the fly with the two of them next to you.
Yeah.
So amazing to watch you. Kaylin, someone needs to get you a link to watch the show seemingly in Norway. But thank you so much for, coming onto the podcast from Norway. It was great to watch you play, and I've loved chatting to you. Thanks so much.
Thanks, heaps, Shannon. So nice to meet you.
So nice. Thanks, Kaylin. Bye.
Great. Cool. Catch you later. Bye.
AJ, welcome to Rob Has a Podcast. So sorry to see you go, but hey, falling off something and then going home in third place is winning here on RHAP. So it's a proud tradition, and we're very happy to have you on the podcast.
It feels like I fell off and I broke every bone in my body, but it's good to be here. I'm glad to be here. I wish I was here as a first placer and not a third placer, but Mars is awesome. So I'm happy it was one of us.
If you're not gonna win, being the fallen angel, the literal pun intended fallen angel, that's a great spot to be. Being in the I should have won spot, I was so close to winning spot, I'll go on about this forever spot. Like, I think that is great for life.
I think you're just being really nice to me and
I
I
promise.
appreciate it, but I'll take it. I'll take it. All right, what do you got for me? I'm here for
Okay.
this.
I really mean it. I mean, I feel like there are so many great fallen angels. Anyway, a proud tradition, but let's talk about it. Let's talk about the fact that you are a third placer and not a first placer. Would you look back now at a pivot? I don't really see a pivot. I think this was a good spot, but you look back at where something should have gone differently to better your chances here?
I think there's a lot of things I could have done differently. Like the game of Survivor is very fluid, right? So your game should always change based on the board and who you're playing with. And I definitely made a lot of mistakes. I think, like, for example, after Logan and Karen went home, I felt like Karen and Logan were two of my biggest rivals and obstacles in the game. They were playing really amazing, and they were the ones that were kind of very aware of what I was, but didn't like what I was in a game sense because it threatened their game. So once they went home, I saw a really clear path to the end. And I think I switched off a little bit. And in that time, I think Miles switched on because he also saw a clear path to the end. And in that sense, maybe 7, 6, 5, 4, I could have been more aware of what was happening. I could have had more conversations. I could have done things differently. And 7, I definitely wanted Kristen to go home. And 6, I definitely wanted Morgan to go home. But at 5, maybe I should have sat there and reevaluated the game. And also, you can go all the way back to earlier than that, because maybe I could have set up the game in a way where I can win the final immunity instead of going all in on Kailin, who the edit kind of, even though he was a challenge beast and he won all these immunities, people still thought Miles had a chance. Nobody was beating Kailin at that final challenge. It was just never going to happen. So, you know, I just kind of went all in on Kailin, and maybe I should have went all in on myself.
I mean, I think, well, we can argue about it on the deep dive. I mean, Kailin, you know, I knew it was going to be like I literally said a pokey foot challenge, and then it literally was a pokey foot challenge. I feel like Kailin is a challenge beast, but in terms of endurance, in terms of the fact that even height seemed to help you in that challenge, in terms of the fact that his body type doesn't usually lend itself as much to that type of challenge, I think you kind of had the best challenge situation for yourself from like final 9 onwards, right? Like you want to be with Logan, Kate, Morgan. I mean, Australian Survivor will put some pretty big challenge competitors into the game. So from that kind of end game, like I think this was you came second, you did really well in that challenge. I think this was actually a really good physical spot for you.
I completely agree, but this is where you can look back on your game and be like, you made a mistake. Maybe I should have dragged people earlier on in that game that I could have beat to final 9. But this is like, you should always be very critical of yourself in a game of Survivor. And if you don't win, or even if you do win, you should probably kind of look over what you could have done better and what you could have done differently. But that was another route for me. And don't get me wrong, pre-game, I wrote a final 5 of who I wanted. And I wanted 2 endurance threats, a strategic threat, and a challenge beast. And that was the final 5 that kind of molded itself together. But maybe I should have been like, I need 4 people that are hopeless at challenges and me.
AJ.
And, maybe I would have had a chance.
Oh, you're too. As coming from me, you're too critical of yourself. Like I should have thought about dragging people from before the final 9, AJ. It went as well as it could. Sometimes you just run out of runway. Like sometimes there's nothing more you can do at that point. I mean, Kailin is in tears, not taking you to the end. I think you got as close as physically possible. That's my opinion. I'd love to talk about, Kailin makes that cut. He called you his best friend in the world. Then you came and you introduced him to your best friend. I think if anything, that was a mistake. That was probably where it went wrong. But how was it in that moment? Like how you said you felt like you had like an 80% chance. Like how are you feeling in that moment? I'm sure for an afternoon you thought you probably had $500,000 in the bank account.
So the day before, I definitely thought I'd won. The second it was Miles, Kailin, and I thought I'd won. And it wasn't until that morning, and they don't show the footage, but it was on camera. Kailin came up to me, and Kailin and I, the edit doesn't show how close we were. Kailin and I spent almost every day together in that game, and we played and voted together the entire game. And probably it was after Rich went home. Kailin and I we were inseparable. He would tell me everything. And like he was best friends with everyone, but there was one person he was giving all the information to. And I don't judge someone based on, hey, I'm taking you to the end and I believe them. Like it came down to he was giving me everything. You can even see it at 4. Like at 4, he should have voted me out. At 5, he should have voted me out. Like, or tried to vote me out, but he didn't want to because that's Kailin. He's a loyal guy. So towards the end, it wasn't until final 3 morning, he came up to me and he was like, hey, look, just so you know, you should do your best in the challenge. I was just planning to get down from the final challenge. He was like, you should do your best in the challenge. I'm 80% taking you, but I just want you to do your best. And I was like, oh, I'm cooked. Like that was the first moment where I was like, I'm going to give this challenge everything because Kailin might not take me now. And as the challenge went on, in my head, I was like, all right, I'll beat Miles because I'd been throwing challenges the whole game. Like, and I don't know if people believe me or don't believe me. It doesn't really matter to me, but there's no point winning challenges when you know you're safe. I just don't believe it. I don't believe in winning challenges. You're just raising your threat level. Anyway, so I just wanted to beat Miles. I did. And I got to the point where I was like, Kailin, we're good now. Like, let's, I'm taking you, da-da-da. And he just stonewalled me. And I was like, I think I'm dead. Like, I think that's it. And I assumed we were going to have a chat after the challenge. And I was going to give him everything. I was going to be like, this was my time to convince him to take me. But we just went straight into tribal. And didn't go very well.
Well, I think people can believe you were throwing challenges because like death, taxes, and you throwing challenges seems to be the thing. So I wanted to ask as well, if you got to the final three, it seemed like it was the final two, it seemed like it was going to be a good situation. What were kind of like the key parts of your pitch? I'm sure we can go into this more on the deep dive, but you said in your jury that like people didn't even know the game you were playing, and it seems like even then they were going to vote for you. But what was like kind of like the ace in the holes that you felt you had?
Oh man. Okay. So a lot of it doesn't make the edit. So it's very hard to talk about it now. So I'll just do my best to skim over it. But I want to kind of bring, so Miles and I played the same archetype of game. So if Miles had come third and I won, I think Miles becomes the villain and I become the hero of the story, and vice versa. Because in Australian Survivor, the winner needs to be a very loved person because they want that winner to be loved by the Australian public because that makes the season better. Totally understand. Very, very logical. So for me, a lot of the stuff that I was doing didn't get shown because I'm not the winner and they don't want to give me too much. So for example, strategy behind the hostages situation, strategy behind throwing challenges, why Rich went home, how Rich went home. And there's all these votes along the way that, I was there for. These crazy things were happening. Like, does the edit make sense to a lot of people where I'm this public enemy and never getting votes? What's going on? Like, does anybody know what's going on? I mean, I knew what was going on, but I think most of the cast kind of has a really good idea of what was going on. But information, or what I was doing with information, was segregating it based on certain players. And everybody, because the game of Survivor, in my opinion, isn't about lies. It's about telling the truth. And it's about telling the truth in a way where this is the truth, but at the same time, it's my version of the truth. And this is the truth that helps me. And kind of being able to go to the jury and pitch it, because I would have an individual truth for every single player on that jury. It would make sense because these are the receipts. This is what happened. And, I never got to go on and say that. That's fine. And it's not in the edit, but I think it would make more sense to the public about what was happening out there and why I wasn't going home, instead of everyone being like, why is this guy not going home? But yeah, sorry, that's my.
Well, I think we got it. I think I said it was kind of your ideal end game that you'd controlled every vote. I think something we spoke about at length was how you won the battle of numbers largely by securing Kate and Morgan through that merge. What happened there? How was that such a close relationship? Because if anything, that was like Miles had idols, Kailin had immunity wins, and you had Kate and Morgan. I think was like your little advantage in the game.
Okay, firstly, Kate is amazing. It is so disrespectful to Kate to think that cringy flirting when I was like drunk would convince her of anything. Kate is a smart cookie. And Kate was very aware that a lot of people in the tribe were out to get her because she was an endurance threat. She was a lot of people's direct competition. And because the Brains tribe was generally very strong and they had the idea to kind of roll through with the Brawns, it put Kate in a very precarious situation where she was a target for a lot of that. And I think, I communicated that with her. She communicated that with me. And we bonded over that. We were both really big targets and we were both going to use each other as shields. And Kate is so amazing socially. She's such a lovable person. Everybody loved Kate. And it's kind of like people want to work with her, but people are also afraid of her. And I think that kind of bond, as long as there was somebody out there that was looking out for her, it would help her to get through. And Kate I think Kate made a really good decision because look how far it got her. And I think at 5, if Miles doesn't have an idol or Zara doesn't want immunity or whatever, maybe things are different. And she goes a bit further and she gets to the end. Like, it's kind of like a different way the game flows. Same with Morgan. Morgan was somebody who, she was out there to challenge herself, and she challenged herself and she did amazing. And I think Morgan and Kate kind of were a package deal, but they were very separate people. And they were both amazing socially. And Morgan especially, because Morgan was there for the fun of it. And she was kind of just chilling a lot of the time. And she was very direct. Morgan's a straight shooter. If she doesn't like something about you, she will tell you she doesn't like something about you. And that was really good for me as well, because I think sometimes she would step on people's toes and then the target would be away from me and more towards them. But yeah, so also the last thing about Kate and I think morally we're very on the same level. Like, Kate's somebody who's very considerate to others. She gives a lot of herself to other people. She always helps around camp. Like, if there's a limited amount of rice, she will not eat, or she will eat less. And I think kind of I'm the same thing. So the things that you don't see on camera, the small kind of lifestyle things, she was really good at. And I think we're on the same page there.
What about some of the other relationships? Because some of it I think I got, like how much you were controlling things and like, your hand in a lot of the pie. Some of it I was like, what is the berries? Why is Logan investing in you? Logan has been angry. Kristen, we've seen things, and she as well. And then she comes on the exit interview, and I'm like, but you saw AJ, and she was like, but did she see AJ? Like she had invested in you as well. So what were the kind of other relationships that you think carried you really far? And also for some of them, how? Like, how was that happening?
This is what I mean, right? Like,
Yeah.
I am the villain of the season.
No,
And
not for
because
me, AJ. Not for me. You're not my villain. You're not my. I have a 9-year-old cousin. She said she wanted you to win. My mom loves you. I don't think you're as much of a villain as you think. So some people,
okay,
maybe.
all right, I got the third place edit. We'll go with that. So I got the third place edit, and the third place edit is a very unique situation because they want to show your game, but they also want to show a lot of the flaws in your game and why you lost, and they want the public to be happy that you have gone out here and happy for the winner to win. So
Yeah.
going into that, people like Logan and I got along very well. Like, Logan and I had a little secret alliance. It was called Enemies to Lovers, because we would literally be enemies, and then we'd be talking together and be amazing. We'd be voting together. And Logan had this thing where she's so adorable with this. She would blow up at me because like I would betray her trust or something. She had every right to blow up at me. She blows up at me. And I'd be like, oh, crap. And then 15 minutes later, because she is a game player, because she is strategic, she's smart, she'd come up to me and she'd give me a hug and she'd be like, darling, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to blow up at you. You know what I'm like. Like, da-da-da-da-da. You just played the game. I respect it. Let's do it again. But stop burning my trust. And, like, yeah. And I think Karen was the same. Karen and I, like, we butted heads a lot strategically, but we're just really good out there. We were just good friends out there. And I drove her crazy. I drove Karen crazy. But outside of the show, we're just good friends. And people like Kristen was at the bottom of the Bronze tribe, and we're kind of stringing her along a lot of the time, but she was this like blinding, beautiful light. She was never sad. She was always happy. And her and I just bonded over that because I was always happy. I was just so glad to be out there. And these are the relationships that, you see the camera's on for like a couple of hours a day. And the rest of the hours a day, it's just lifestyle choices and you talking about life and you getting to know other players. And I think at that level, I was connecting with people really well. And I think so people would be like, 23 hours of the day, we love AJ. And 1 hour of the day, we're just like, this guy needs to stop. I think the other really big thing is communication. And I think that as long as I could do something and I could communicate it to them, and then I could listen to why they hated it, and I could understand their perspective, and we would talk about it, and we would butt heads, but it was always, amicable. It was always, this is the game. And we as a cast were really good at separating the game from reality. And that was amazing because everybody got it. And that's why even right now, we're all friends. We were all just out last night. So like basically the whole jury, because that's just the game we were all playing. Sorry, that was a long-winded answer to your question, but go on.
No, I love it. I could talk to you about this all day, and soon I literally will. But let's talk quickly about the hostage plan, because if you talk about recovering from how people were perceiving you in those ways. I spoke to Zara yesterday. She said you felt like PD would flip, and Kristen was saying that. Was it that? Like, talk me through this plan at its top level, and then I'm sure we will get into in the deep dives every part of this.
I'm going to try and do this as quickly as possible, and then we can go into the deep dive. Okay, so the hostages plan was not completely insane, which is going to shock so many people. Everyone's going to be like, AJ, you're just crazy, It wasn't. Okay, so firstly, my alliance was in on the plan. All right, like Karen and Kailin and whatever, they were in on it. Logan, not so much, because her people were on the other side. But the plan was, for me, and then for everybody else, so much to explain here. Okay, top shelf. All right. So what happened in this plan is I got Noonan and Paulie to go over to the Brawns and tell them, hey, you guys need to get rid of Max and Laura. I wasn't working with Max and Laura. I was working with Zara and Miles. They were the two people I had to protect. Okay. Then I got Logan to go up to them and say, hey, save Max and Laura, right? Because if your enemies tell you to save Max and Laura and your friends tell you to get rid of them, what are you going to do, right? It's confirmation bias. So then I was like, all right. I also knew PD was going to flip. PD was not happy over there with those Brawn guys. He knew he was at the bottom of that alliance, and PD is a very smart player. If the edit doesn't show up, he's a very smart player. So now I knew that PD was going to flip over to the Brains if he got the chance. So I've got this situation where if PD flips over to the Brains, then they have the majority, and it's good that I threw a vote because I still want to work with Paulie and Noonan and Kristen and Ursula. Like, I don't know them yet. I don't know what type of players they are yet. I want the chance to build really strong bonds with them to see if they're going to suit my game. I need more time. I just want to buy time. Okay, so I've set that up so that if they lose, Max or Laura should go home. And if they, so either my plan works and they flip and a Brawn goes home, or my plan doesn't work because PD doesn't flip and either Max or Laura should go home. So now on the other side of that, on the Brawn tribe, on the Brawn 2.0 tribe, nobody wants to take the heat for this. So I'm going to go up there and take the heat, and they're going to look aggrieved and outraged, and we are not part of this and whatever. But I've explained the logic to them. Then after I announced the plan, it's during the challenge where Miles finds his idol and is like, I've got the idol, pricks, let's go win. So while everybody else was looking for idols, they don't show this footage. I go straight up to Zara. Zara's sitting on the bench, and I explain it. I'm like, hey, this is what's going to happen. Da 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 da. How do you feel about PD? She's like, yeah, actually, PD would flip. Like, I have been having conversations with PD. I'm like, sweet, this plan's a go. And she's like, what if it doesn't work and Max or Laura go home? And I'm like, if that happens, I will throw every single challenge after this, and you will be safe. And she was like, okay, I'm in. I was like, sweet, we are actually good to go now. Like, everything's on board. And she's like, I'm still going to be outraged at you. I'm like, that's fine. You guys be outraged. Explain it to Miles. And then she goes and explains it to Miles. So now this hostage situation where it looks like everybody's outraged, it kind of works. Like, Max ends up not going with the Brawns. So now PD can't flip with Max. And then Max goes home.
Yeah.
Sorry, Max, that sucks. But the plan didn't work because Max wasn't with them. If Max was with them, the plan would have worked. But the next plan worked where Max ended up going home. And would he have went home if Miles didn't have an idol? I think he still goes home because they're still going to be worried about Miles having an idol, right? They're going to make the safe play. Anyway, and then after that, I was like, okay, I've got to fulfill my side of the bargain. And I just threw challenges. And it sucked because I did want to work with Paulie and Noonan, but I knew enough by that point that Paulie was somebody who, okay, I'm not going to, sorry, that's the answer to my question.
Yeah. Okay, we'll talk about the Paulie relationship in the deep dive. Would you ever have passed your idol to Miles?
Would I pass it? Absolutely not. No.
Oh, yeah. I thought that was.
Thank you guys for giving me so much credit, but that idol was, it was never going to get told to anyone. It was never going to get shown. And I was just going to keep it until a point where I thought I could use it absolutely the best. And Miles was a really good part of my game, but Miles was also socially, okay, whatever. Miles is amazing. But at that time, I think I could have played the game without Miles. But I think the person who I really, really wanted to protect on that side was Zara. Zara was a very integral part of my game. Zara's game does not get enough credit at all in this edit. And she was amazing. And Zara was somebody I desperately wanted to protect over there. Yeah. So if anything, I passed it to Zara, but I wasn't passing my idol to anyone.
A lot of teasers for the deep dive. Last question. The jury vote between Kailin and Miles, your two best buds, was there anything in this for you, or was it kind of as you laid it out at Tribal Council that Kailin's mistake was bigger and like harder for you to get past that he'd gone to the end with Miles?
Getting out of the game, I was probably 85% Miles, 15% Kailin, because Kailin had been telling me the entire game, like, Kailin and I were like this. He'd been telling me everything. And, you know, I don't judge somebody by them saying, hey, I'm going to take you to the end. I judge them by their actions. And Kailin was with me the whole time, which is why I didn't vote me out 5-4, whatever. Anyway, so Kailin was always telling me that there was, you know, AJ, I'm hiding how smart I am, da-da-da. I'm playing it down. And then he would do it. And then sometimes he would wink at me and da-da-da. And so I knew he was playing it down. So getting out of the game, I didn't think he had done enough because I had played the closest to him. Right, I knew what his game was because I'd seen every piece of it, and like anytime he put a vote forward, I'd be like, no, that's it. Like we shouldn't do that, whatever. But I wanted to be open-minded that there was stuff that I didn't know. So getting out of it, I was 85% Miles, 15% Kailin, and then I got to the jury and I got some more information, and I was like, okay, cool. And in that final tribal, he was just the player that I'd played with. Like there was nothing else that he told me that I didn't know. And so I wanted to give him one final question to see if he could overcome this question. I think he might have had a chance, but it was just what I thought it was. And I think that was it from there. I think the jury was very Miles going into it, as they should be. But everyone was a little bit open to Kailin. They were like, okay, you could give us a pitch that we really like. But when he said he was strategic, and when he said he'd made no mistakes, and when he said, he just didn't say the right things. And Kailin, he played an amazing. He really did. He played a game that he always gets to the end, but I think he played a game that it's very, very hard to win when you get to the end. He just needed to do a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, I said last question, but I lied. One last question. Would you play again? You had almost all of the experience, but what are you up for another 47 days of Australian Survivor?
I will answer that with this. I wanted to win that game so badly. I wanted to win so badly. Like it has been months since that game ended, and I am still burning that I didn't win. Yeah. I want to win. And Miles also lives 10 minutes walk from me. Miles and I are very close, and I have to hear so often from him that I have no immunity necklaces, and I didn't win and he did, and da-da-da-da-da. So I think if I ever got a chance, and maybe with Miles in my ear being like, hey, you haven't won, I've won, da-da-da, I might do it. But if I ever went on again, I don't think I'd get close to winning. I think I would get absolutely cooked.
Well, look at you. You're totally harsh on yourself. It hasn't even happened yet.
I would have to play such a different game. And, I love people. I think my game was based on me I genuinely love people. People are so interesting. Every single person is interesting. I get a lot of hate messages on Instagram. I get tons of hate on Instagram right now. Oh, it's so fine. But people send me a hate message and I'm just like, you're so interesting. Like, why are you telling me that every time I breathe, it's a waste of oxygen? Like, what's happening in your life to kind of get to that? And sometimes I just reply nicely and I'm like, and they're just like, oh, we didn't think you'd reply. That's so weird. But yeah, so to answer your question, it's possible under the right circumstances. I think it's possible. And I would just go out there the same way I went out there this time. And that's to just have fun. Like, what are the chances of me winning Survivor? Almost zero. What are the chances of me going out and having fun? 100%. And I just wanted to go out and have fun. And I was very aware it's a TV show, right? You can play Survivor perfectly, but if you win and you haven't played a cool, fun game, did you really win? Like, did you really win? So going out there and playing this big, fun game was priority number one. And then priority number two was maybe getting really, really lucky and winning. Because winning Survivor, you need to get really, really lucky. And that's why Miles' game is so amazing, because he went out there and he just had fun and coincidentally won. And how cool is that?
Yeah. Well, there have to be possibly other goals. Like, if you look at winning as something that's, quite a long shot, you have to have kind of other goals. It seems like you achieved a lot of them. We're going to talk about all of this at length very, very soon. I'm excited for it. We'll be in touch, and I hope that people, will check that out many hours longer. We have this, I assume, but we have this in the meantime. Thank you so much, AJ. Don't be too harsh on yourself. Don't listen to the randoms on Twitter. Like, they're interesting, but they also suck. Like, it is interesting, but like, AJ, don't be too harsh on yourself.
I have a bone to pick with you. When I was taking hostages, you were not a fan.
I was a fan. AJ, I got hate for defending you.
You defended me once, and you were like, I can't defend this anymore. Defend it. Back your read, Shannon. I believe in you.
Okay, look, it was hard to read, like, without knowing the whole backstory. I see the point. I defended you, I think, more than most. I think people were upset on both sides of like, you're too harsh on AJ, and that's how I feel like I'm doing a good job. That's always when I know I think I'm doing well. But AJ, don't listen to the mean people, including yourself. Okay, sometimes I'm like, am I my own worst hater? Don't be that person. You be kind to yourself. You played an amazing game. I don't think there was anything you could have done much different. Be kind to yourself, and I'll speak to you very, very soon. Thank you so much for coming onto the podcast.
I am looking forward to this deep dive.
Me too.
Be ready. And you have to talk about the deep dive. It's not me just one-sidedly talking. We're going to interact. I'm going to ask you questions.
I can't wait for the quiz. Thanks, AJ. I'll see you soon. Bye. All right. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Zara, welcome to Rob Has a Podcast. So sorry to see you go. Last woman standing in this unfortunate boot order of women, but it was great to watch you play, and thank you so much for coming onto the podcast.
Sure, thank you. So I have to tell you that this entire season, AJ and I have always gone to the gym in our separate states, listened to your podcast, and then called each other and had an hour-long debrief that could probably be our own podcast.
Honestly, people have People have talked about doing podcasts on the podcast. I'm sure you have takes, certainly on the last week, but I felt like we were in line last night when you were like, I should have voted out AJ, and I was like, I've been saying. So at least when we got to a similar page, because as I said, the ranting is always out of love. But I'd love to ask you about kind of this endgame path. And had you gotten to the final three and won the final challenge, who did you want to sit next to, and what were you kind of hoping that pitch would be with them?
Well, I think I was saying that I should have voted AJ out last night in frustration. With the benefit of hindsight, I think what I should have done at 5 is tried to vote out Kailin. So that was my plan when I actually went to Miles and said, can we vote out Kailin if he doesn't win the necklace? And Miles wanted to vote out AJ. And as soon as he said that, to me, that became Miles's move, not my move. So Miles had enough moves. I wanted to do something myself. So that was where that came in. But definitely I wanted to get to 3 with AJ and Kailin, and I just wanted to win that final immunity challenge and then make the choice out of the 2 of them of who I would take.
Were you leaning to one over the other?
I think at that point I was leaning towards taking AJ, which I know that everyone will think that I'm crazy for doing. I don't know if when I got there, if I would have swapped that to Kailin, but AJ was the person that I was with basically since day 2, and we were incredibly close. And I keep saying as well, everyone's saying you've got to think about final 2 and you've got to think about where you're going, but you have to actually get there. And I trusted him to help me get there. So that was where my thought process was with that.
And then looking at, because you were so close to, getting to the end, looking at that jury, who were the votes on the jury that you hoped to get? And what would your pitch have been to the jury? Because I've been saying this whole time, I don't actually know, like, how do the Coven react to a Coven member on the jury? Because when I see the Coven, I see chaos and destruction a lot of the time. So do you think that would have been rewarded well? We did see when you went into Jury Villa, they weren't mean to you. A rarity seemingly in the Jury Villa videos of this episode. So how do you kind of feel like those votes, what votes were you hoping to get, and what would have been your argument there?
I think there's been a lot of sort of chatter about there being a bitter jury. I can unequivocally say we are all lovers of the game. There was not going to be a bitter jury. We are going to make a great decision based on the gameplay that was going on. And I think as well, the Coven and I, Laura, Logan and Karen, outside of the game and inside of the game, are also some of my best friends. And I think game recognizes game. We were all having a crack at each other because we were trying to get to the end, but we understood that. So I think that the Coven would have assessed my moves and my pitch and would have just gone with the best person there. It wasn't going to be me relying on their friendship. It would have been me explaining the moves that I made and hoping that that resonated with them.
Yeah, so what were the moves? Like, what were the specific things that you were going in as like the cornerstone of your argument for a jury?
So I was going to focus on, first of all, me going against the Coven and initially forming with the graduates when we got Ali out. That was a huge move for me. And that was me sitting there by myself. I was completely exposed because Karen had been sent back to the island. And in hindsight, it actually worked out great because as the graduates, we could move through the game without anyone really realizing that we were a thing. And I could, lean on the fact and pretend that I had just made a mistake. So that was going to be one part of it. Obviously, one of my moves that has gotten the most chat is the stealing of Laura's advantage. That as well was a massive move for me because not only did I take that, I sat there and argued in what was really a mini final tribal council and got those people to vote me back to my allies. They literally sent me over there, giving me the gift of being able to reconnect with them, work out what we were going to be doing going forward. And then the Kate move, as much as people might not have agreed with it because I didn't give the audience what they wanted. If you look at that position that I was in, I parlayed having that necklace and I had every single piece of information. I knew where every single vote was going and I could sit there at that final tribal council and choose who I wanted to go home. And that to me was a really powerful move.
Yeah, I mean, of the 10 people who've ever been involved in a 2-1-1-1 vote, you are the only one of all 10 who knew where all the votes were going. So that is super impressive. And I love this way of asking questions because I was about to ask you about forming the graduates, voting out Ali and the advantage. So getting through it from a final tribal perspective is great. Yeah, but in terms of forming the graduates, which is obviously such a huge part of the game, of this end game, of every part of it, the graduates are all over that. Tell me about working with AJ and Miles in that though. Probably pros and cons, good things, drawbacks. When Miles is like taking out an idol stealer and like voting out PD as an example, it's like they can do chaotic things. AJ's on the other side telling them to throw challenges when you would be not in a good spot if that happens, if he has hostages. So can you talk about the working relationship between AJ and Miles and yourself?
Yeah, so I mean, post game as well, I have a beautiful relationship with the graduates. We have a very active group chat with the 5 of us, with Karen included. And I say what I love watching Miles and AJ play from an audience perspective, playing alongside them. That was that was hard. I've said to Miles that vote where he wanted me to go for AJ. I like being able to walk into a tribal council with the person that I want to be with and say, this is what we are going to do. This is what is going to happen. My vote is going to go here. Your vote is going to go there. We are building trust. That's how we're going forward. There were tribal councils when Miles would say, oh, I'm going to vote for this person. And, you just do whatever you want to do and go over the top. And for me, that's my brain doesn't work that way. So I think when it did come to that final push of him wanting me to go with him and vote AJ out, that was where our disconnect was, where I just felt like I just needed steady and to know what was going to be happening and that there was going to be follow through. But yeah, that's my overall impression of it. I love watching them playing alongside them. Like stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you came back so well with AJ when you get, the advantage happens and the news happens that someone's gonna go to the other tribe. You go and you swap back to AJ, and like he had been really like offering you as bait, in terms of like the hostage plan. But it felt like you guys got through that so well. Like, what did you kind of feel about that plan?
I understood exactly what AJ was doing. So, and I think that you have to try and look at it from everybody's perspective. Like when I was on the mat and he launched the hostage plan, I absolutely was shocked and I thought he was completely throwing me under the bus. But then we were talking a lot in challenges, which I think Kate mentions at Tribal too, whenever we could. And I understand that he thought that PD was going to flip and be with us. And so he also thought that Paulie and Noonan were 2 people that the rest of the Brawns couldn't wait to reconnect with, which wasn't necessarily true. So he was probably coming out with this hostage plan with not the right information because he was on the other tribe. And, Kristen was saying PD will absolutely flip with them. And PD wasn't prepared to do that when he saw the dynamic between Max and Miles. So once he gets all those pieces of information, you can see him pivot and the hostages plan kind of just gets pushed to the side. So I always understood exactly what he was doing. So I think that's why it made it easy for me to keep working with him.
Yeah, we have heard that you had like a sneaky relationship with PD, and then like Mars kind of had the sneak attack on PD, and Karen had been close with Kristen, and this was like a little block that could have formed. So yeah, can you tell us a little bit about that? Because we saw obviously like nothing of that.
Yeah, I mean, I had a beautiful relationship with PD. He's a great person. He's a great man. He's a coach. He's married. He's got 2 kids. We just bonded on a human level. And he's also really smart. He's watched a lot of Survivor. He knew what was going on out there. And so our ultimate plan was Karen was getting on really well with Kristen over there. I was getting on really well with PD here. And we were going to sort of come over the top and create a floating alliance where we had all the pieces of information. And at some point when we decided we wanted to do something together, we could. But then we obviously lost PD, and he, I guess, was the glue that was sticking us all together because we've seen Kristen on camera saying that she didn't feel like she could work with me. So, yeah, that was a shame.
What was your perspective at the merge? Because as we hear, like, okay, so you have that kind of option, you have the Coven, you have the Graduates, you have Girls Gone Wild. Like, these are all the alliances that will rule from the merge in different capacities, often against each other. That puts you kind of in a crossroads of that. How did you kind of see when you got to the merge, the dynamics, who you wanted to work with, what your priority were what your priorities were, and how you like kind of saw what the hierarchy should be going forward from like that merge point.
Well, coming into the merge was off the back of me stealing, as I'll say, Laura's advantage. So I felt like I was in a bit of a precarious situation in that, Jesse had sort of decided that he wanted to start throwing my name out. So that was when, for me, all that kind of groundwork, that 9 days that Laura and I had put in with Kate and Morgan, that really became something that was great that we could then rely on. So also, just from a point of view, when the Brawns said that they wanted to target a Brawn and get Jesse out at merge, I think all of the OG Brains and I were just like, have at it. That's perfect. If a Brawn goes out here and we are dominant in the numbers, that's great. But I think that the relationship that none of us were expecting was AJ and Kate. And that really threw a spanner in the works because, gosh, I tried to work with Kate and Morgan post-merge and they were just completely closed off to it because they had AJ.
Yeah. And at the point where Laura's going to end up going and it's a split on Laura and Logan, obviously that's, like the coven on coven violence where you're kind of making that cut. Was there kind of the thought that maybe you might want to go like with them or that side, or were you kind of like all in on the graduates at that point?
I think that the graduates, as much as it is shown, it's not shown the extent of it. The graduates and so it started off the four of us. That started on day 2. That was always my number one alliance. And the coven was kind of, it was great. It was convenient, but we were at war right from the beginning where you see we all had a person. Laura had Rich, Logan was working closely with Max, I had AJ, and we just could never get it together about which of these people we were going to target. So I think Logan having an idol was very scary. And also from my point of view, although I felt like Laura forgave me for taking the advantage, it was actually Logan that I didn't really think forgave me. And you have to kind of think sometimes the actions that you have enacted, you can't come back from. And that's sort of where I felt like I'd burnt Logan too many times. I'd burnt her with the alley vote. I'd burnt her doing that to her bestie. And I don't think we were going to get back on the same page after that.
Yeah, I mean, do you think she bought that the alley vote was like a Kara style, I've cooked this, or do you think that she had her suspicions that you had done that on purpose?
I think that she had her suspicions, but you've also got to sort of acknowledge that out there, sometimes it's just easier to be like, okay, Zara, I'll let you have that. But I don't think that they realized that it was a plan that had been formulated before we went to Tribal. I knew before I went to Tribal, Karen and I were banding together with the graduates. You see it in that Tribal Council where Karen saying, oh, and we're all graduating tonight. So it was always the name that I was going to write down, whereas I think Logan thought that I had genuinely just panicked or thrown someone under the bus so that I could continue on myself.
Yeah, well, as everyone has said, they didn't know about the graduates, like to us, we see it formed with the name and everything. And that was like the sneaky, it's a core of the season, but no one knew that was happening. Within that as well, I think the question we've had for a lot of people in the vote at Bounty and Baron is Miles being targeted. And like Miles, especially as your ally, is like mass targeted. And we see you come together with Kate and Morgan, like for once they're, they have their ears open to getting out, Miles, and you kind of work across the aisle there. But then Miles is immediately discarded as a target. Like once he saves himself, it's like onto the next thing. It's like, but Miles is still there. You didn't get him. It's like if it's a rat exterminator, like they've done a bad job of exterminating the rat. I feel like, and then like, but then they're like, let's let the rat go free, and then you're gonna go on to kind of he'll target you at points, and then work with him as well through the postgraduate. So I'm just kind of confused about the Miles vote in particular, like coming together there with Kate and Morgan. What was kind of the incentive behind, well, what was your kind of thought process behind taking out Miles? But then like everyone just kind of gets over it, I feel like, the next day.
Well, what happened there was when we were Bounty and Baron, Miles came to me and he said, before the challenge, we were on the polls, throw that challenge. I want to target Kate. So don't win, get off the poll, and we are all going to target Kate. AJ came to me and said, Miles is trying to make you throw that challenge and then he's going to vote you out. he said, Miles is coming for you. And I thought, that sounds like something that Miles would actually do. Make me throw a challenge and make me look like an idiot and then vote me out. So that was why that happened, was AJ had told me that Miles was coming for me. So I, in turn, fired shots at Miles. But then after that, we get back together and sort of smooth everything over. So that's why I guess everything just looks like it kind of moved on. And to this day, those two boys argue out of the game about whether or not that happened, about whether or not Miles was actually coming for me. So, you know, I've trapped them in a car together when we're driving together and tried to get to the core of whether or not that happened. But, you know, something we'll probably never know.
You deserve a medal for 45 days out there with the two of them and the many months since, I'm sure, of dealing with all of that chaos. What about Kailin? We see much less of Kailin in that trio there than AJ and Miles. What were you kind of seeing of Kailin's game? Because we know he's kind of been, underplaying a little bit, and we know that you two were close as well. So what was that relationship with him like?
Yeah, I had a beautiful relationship with Kailin, and I have a son, and Kailin really, I think he just became my island son, and he was always the guy walking out to a challenge, and he'd have no shirt on and one sock, and I'd be running after him like, Kailin, here's your shirt. I've like washed it and hung it out. Like, here's your other sock. Like, you can't go to a challenge looking like that. And he, to me, I used to call him Baby K, and he would call me Mama Z.
Yeah.
Because we were supposed to be Denise and Malcolm from the US season, but Kailin could never remember their names. So he would come up to me all the time and be like, we're like Gertrude and Peter, right, from the US season. And I'm like, close enough.
Amazing.
But he really, I think that Kailin at the start had a difficult time with the tough things you have to do out there about having to write down your friends' names and everything. But he definitely collected steam towards the end. But I think in a season where you have the AJs and the Miles, he was just, he was happy to be less involved with the tough decisions, I think.
Yeah, well, I wish we'd been able to see even more of the relationships of the dynamic of Peter and Gertrude. That sounds like a very fun time. But were there any other like major relationships through the game that we didn't get to see that were even like positive or negative that you feel like were kind of important to you on the island?
I think Laura and I had a really important relationship that, there was those 9 days together at Brains 2.0 where the Brawn did not want to engage with us, so we just had so much time. And I said to Miles the other night, I don't know what you were doing. We think maybe he was just, yapping over there to the Brawn. But we spent a lot of time together, and that was a really significant relationship for me. You form bonds with everyone. Kate is another person that, although it looks like I was constantly trying to get her out, I was, which is a massive compliment because she has the same skill set as me. But she is a genuinely beautiful and very amazing person. And being alongside her out there while she had her OCD going on as well. And my best friend at home has OCD as well. So I felt like I connected with her, and she's just a hustler and I really admire her. So, everyone that's out there, you form amazing relationships with because it's just a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast, Zara, and thank you for listening to the podcast. I always say the podcast is better for the gym than like falling asleep. Like I pity the people who try to listen falling asleep and I'm like yelling in their ear compared to at the gym. I feel like, especially if you're listening to me talking about you, like running that out and then venting to AJ, that does sound like the way to do that. So I hope it hasn't been a lot. I mean, I think if I was a player listening to myself, like I would really hate that. So I'm sorry for all of the many opinions. So yeah.
And you have to say hi to Chappelle for me. I actually went to DM him, but he's like private because he was very pro Zara. So thanks for being, Team Zara.
I'll tell him. I mean, I don't know why he's private. I'll tell him to not be private. We're a pro Zara podcast, and thank you so much for listening and for being on the podcast. And it was great to chat to you. Thanks so much.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Zara. Bye.
This is RHAP. We know reality TV.